On today's video, we're going to talk about the eruption of violence in Southwest Florida. Naples, Florida was once considered to be one of the safest cities in the country. Today, it is out of control. In this shopping plaza in East Naples, a woman was found dead. On the same day, several people were killed through violence in the city of Naples and vicinity. Violence has got so out of control in Naples that it's not uncommon for several shootings or murders to unfold on the same day. A city that was named one of the safest in the country, violence is erupting out of control. Shootings are happening left and right. A lot of these shootings are random. Sometimes there were family acquaintances, and other times there's a lot of road rage incidents. What are the explanations for this outburst of violence in Naples? There's a few reasons. Many times, the use of fentanyl has become common in Naples, and I personally have seen drugs destroy the lives of a lot of people. Being an affluent community with access to money and drugs, people have had no problem watching their lives spin completely out of control. But then there's another factor, is that people from the Northeast, particularly New York and Connecticut and Ohio, find that when they burn their bridges back home, they come to Naples, Florida. People with out-of-state warrants or who have committed a serious crime somewhere else think that they could hide in South Florida. On July 1st, 2023, people in Florida will be allowed to open carry. It will lead to a huge onslaught of even more violence as this law takes effect. Playing games with guns in Florida could get you 20 years in prison just for displaying it. But with open carry, people will be able to make threats to people and just kind of intimidate other people with their open carry. Most gun owners in Florida are used to the 1020 life law, and it's a state where people are very reactive because the moment somebody pulls a gun out, the intent is criminal, which means if somebody were to pull a gun on you now, most Floridians are just instinctively going to overreact with extreme violence, which may lead to a lot of firearm mortalities that are not considered homicides. Combine that with the fact that between 390,000 to 700,000 people will be leaving the state by this date due to the new immigration laws in the state of Florida that also take effect on the same day. It's been well documented on our YouTube channel that when communities leave, the void left behind becomes a more violent and dangerous place. Florida's firearm mortality rate was the lowest in the entire South, and it doesn't make sense, a state that had very good gun laws, why you would, to cater to popular opinion, make your state like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. We can expect the firearm mortality rate in Florida to increase by 30 to 40% within the next 2 years. Possibly the second half of the year could have up to 50% more firearm mortalities than the first half of the year, putting Florida's gun violence problem on par with the rest of the Deep South. Florida's homicide rate is 7.4. I suspect within the next 2 years, Florida will hit at least 11 out of 100,000. Florida's previous 1020 life rules meant that if you used a weapon to intimidate somebody, it was similar to using it. But with open carry laws, at which point the weapon's display is being used as a threat becomes very uncertain, and really it's going to create huge escalation of unnecessary violence. Just give it a few months, you'll hear stories on the news. Even people who are fanatical about their constitutional rights and who defend the rights of gun ownership are telling me that they think this law is an absolute madness. Hunting seasons here are limited. The state of Florida already has provisions for people to open carry while fishing, hunting, or camping. States like Washington have enacted laws to protect their children from predators. A lot of those people have flocked to Florida, and now a huge number of people who were originally charged in Washington state with a registered status have moved to Florida. We discovered that a vast majority of people who are registered offenders in Florida originally came from from another state and they came to Florida to be homeless. Since the registered offender process here is more welcoming to them, states like Florida and Oregon struggle with the influx of people that are criminals. States like Washington enact laws to keep families safe and help illegal immigrants while making it difficult for registered offenders. Florida, on the other hand, makes life difficult for illegal immigrants and makes the state welcoming for registered offenders. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I just want to tell you the true facts of what's going on. Sadly, we can only expect things to get worse. Homeschooling is a great alternative to subjecting your children to the polarizing world we're in, as schools throughout the country become more and more focused on indoctrination than they are on education. Depending on which state you live in, that can go in either direction. Many parents are finding it advantageous after primary grades to take the education on their hands of the parents through homeschooling and not through a broken school system. A school system that looks at children with special needs as if they were criminals. And in fact, many of the best parenting moves that I've seen in Florida is in fact to homeschool. As by the time they get into middle school and high school, we know what's going on. Lee County, Florida is also struggling even more than Collier County, where Naples sits. With plenty of resources, anything that people want to get their hands on in Naples is readily available. In Lee County, Florida, poverty and crime reign as king. As parents work increasingly longer hours, longer commutes, children are left on the streets, and even in suburban parts of Fort Myers are actually hiding a huge amount of homelessness right on the outskirts of luxury communities. Out of the sight of tourists, the people that are engaging in homelessness have to venture deeper into the woods and out of sight. Hidden behind the tree lines is homelessness, addiction, with no end in sight. Both in Naples and in Fort Myers, road rage incidents have topped the list of reasons why shootings are taking place. A random, unnecessary, and sometimes completely unpredictable situation where anger and frustration, undoubtedly substance presence in people's bloodstream, makes them act completely irrational, making blank targets like you and me potential victims of completely random shootings simply trying to commute home. Simply going to the grocery store on a run in Florida can get you caught up in a road rage incident, and with open carry laws soon taking effect, you can be certain that unnecessary escalation by people displaying weapons will only contribute to an already volatile situation. While in most places, violence is directed at people within the communities that engage in illegal activities, if you're living in Southwest Florida, all you have to do is run into one of these crazy people that has no mental help, addiction, and on top of that now, the ability to display a weapon with possibly no repercussions. Many times when laws are unclear or understood, they leave the window open for law enforcement to not be able to prosecute somebody who's doing something that is technically wrong, but not legally wrong. And when prosecution becomes questionable, so do the amount of people who take advantage of these laws in order to intimidate other people and make life a living misery for the rest of us in the community. However, as conditions worsen, safety becomes more questionable. The media portrays these communities as great places to live, where safety realms, with many public officials even claiming that they're some of the safest places to live in the country. You would have to be a complete moron to even believe this context. It's undisputable, beyond any reasonable doubt, which regions of the country are really the safest and which regions of the country have the worst problems. Why the future of Florida is being modeled after places that have the worst crime, the lowest life expectancy, the highest murder rates, the highest firearm mortality rates is beyond me. Florida is now becoming Alabama. And while hopefully Florida never becomes what Alabama is today, it's certainly starting to edge closer to that mayhem. Open carry laws means that you are allowed to display a weapon. So if a criminal wanted to target you for a robbery, all they would have to do is point a weapon at you. And if you don't have a weapon to point back at them, then they know that you are unarmed. In a concealed carry state, a criminal cannot point a gun at somebody and assume that they're not going to be put in danger or be prosecuted for doing it. That's why places like Georgia, Alabama, and Louisiana have had a huge problem with stick-up robberies, and Florida has never dealt with this. Take, for example, the state of Montana. They have a very low murder rate, but they have a very high firearm mortality rate. A lot of people get confused with states that have open carry and low murder rates, and they forget to notice that they have a very high firearm mortality rate. It means they're not considered murders or homicides, but they're still a death by firearm. Example, Montana.
I'm Puerto Rican. I got the flag on my chest. And the other guy I pulled him out of the
You pulled him out of the truck, yeah. I'm asking. The violence in Fort Myers is escalating to new levels where shootings downtown, yes, in the downtown, even random, wild, inexplicable shootings have become part of the norm in the city of Fort Myers. I don't know where they get these low crime analytics from, but if you venture into the streets of Fort Myers, it's as active as venturing into Baltimore or Detroit. If you're subscribed to my channel, you see my videos in Fort Myers. It's non-stop action, non-stop drug raids, non-stop homelessness. It's absolutely wild on the streets of Fort Myers. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when we hit a recession, the real wolves are going to come out. That's when you're going to see air conditioning units being broken into and stolen. During the recession of 2007, 2008, every appliance, even the walls were torn out of houses to remove the plumbing. When crap gets bad in Florida, like there's a recession, Lee County and Collier County usually lead the way in the most foreclosures. With the last recession, things in Lee and Collier got so bad that they had to make a law banning the sale of aluminum copper coils in the entire state of Florida, because any home that became vacant would have all the appliances stolen and the air conditioning units stripped out. Florida is a place that grows very rapidly and improves very rapidly, but when things go left, it's also one of the fastest places to deteriorate. Places like Lehigh Acres and the Golden Gate Estates, which today are some of the fastest growing places in the country, were complete no man's land right after the recession, where houses were broken into, appliances were stolen. There were even properties where the fences were removed from the yards and stolen. When the last recession hit, Southwest Florida and Las Vegas took the biggest hits, with the most foreclosures, more than anywhere else in the country. And while places like Alabama only saw a small percentage of properties go into foreclosure, Southwest Florida had a 45% drop in property values. Even the fences were stolen off of houses. And when people were laid off, the companies claimed that the employees quit so they wouldn't even have to pay higher insurance premiums after letting go of their employees. But the crisis that we're facing in Florida right now isn't the same one as 2007 and 2008. The crisis that Florida's in right now is a completely different animal. Florida's overdose death rate is now among the highest in the entire country. Florida's drug overdose rate is considerably higher than California's. If Florida's overdose death rate continues to climb at the current rate, it could be as bad as West Virginia or Kentucky in a matter of a few years. Yet people in Florida are either stupid enough or hypocritical enough to say California's the one with a drug problem. Florida's homeless problem is also not much different than California's, with one exception. California actually provides their residents with help once they're homeless. The state of Florida not only doesn't provide help, but it almost criminalizes homelessness to the point where people who are homeless have to inevitably end up hiding in very far and remote wooded areas to avoid even being seen while in the state of homeless. We recently interviewed some homeless people on the streets of Lee County, Florida, and here's what they had to say.
People out there, addicts, and not a needle in this arm whatsoever, never been.
We're coming
around there, they're hiding in the woods, they're hiding.
So you got the Boston hat?
I am from Boston originally.
Cool.
I am from Massachusetts, correct.
Why be in Florida?
I came down to take care of my parents because my mother had 4th degree cancer.
So you're homeless right now?
Yes, sir. I get work every day, but I can't afford to pay for rent every day.
Photo compilation that I took when I visited California this year. This is what you see in the streets of California. You see people that are living in campers on the side of the road because the rents in California are higher. I actually inquired about rents in San Diego, and you can rent in San Diego for about $2,200, which is roughly what it would cost to rent in South Florida, with the exception that in California they don't have a lot of new construction, so you're going to pay the same rent in California, but you're not going to get the new construction like you will in the state of Florida. This is mostly in the San Jose area. Now, this camp was near an airport, and they actually forced these people to move out. This was in front of an airport, and it was really causing a huge safety concern. Most of the people that were in this area had cleared out, and they were in the process of pretty much evicting people from this particular site in San Jose, in the streets of San Jose, California. Let me just mention that San Jose, California is one of the safest cities in the country, with a murder rate less than 3 out of 100,000. Meanwhile, Birmingham, Alabama, at 72, you are 27.3 times more likely to be murdered in Birmingham, Alabama than you are in San Jose, California. These are not inconclusive figures. These are solid numbers. Yet, people are actually leaving San Jose, California and moving to Birmingham, Alabama, thinking that it's a safer place to live because of the garbage they've heard in the media. I make these points because I want to shock you with real numbers and information. People are leaving completely safe places and communities and moving to places that are 27 times more dangerous, thinking that they're following their safety and they're doing the right thing. Little do they know, if they just did a little bit of research, that the places they're moving to are not just a little bit more dangerous, they're 27 times more dangerous. I'm not political, I'm analytical, I'm factual. I study things, I study numbers, I go to places, and I compare my real life travels to the things that I see on the ground. Study closely the homelessness that we're observing here in California, the living conditions of these homeless people in California, because in a second, I'm going to switch you to what's going on in Florida, and you're going to see the wide contrast between how homeless people are living in California versus how they're living in Florida. Now, when you look at weather, California is a much more comfortable place to be homeless. Daylight temperatures do not exceed the 70s in a lot of these places, and overnight lows rarely go into the 40s. It's almost the perfect weather to be homeless. However, in the state of Florida, you have heat, humidity, rainstorms, hurricanes. Living in California homeless is a somewhat more comfortable experience than it is in Florida. And it's almost like being homeless in California is somewhat of a lifestyle choice where comforts are limited, but people live normal within the limitations of their homeless status, of course, and their mental state isn't really that bad. The state of California does offer them help, and the weather's not that uncomfortable, so you could say that being homeless in California isn't exactly a detrimental health situation like it is in Florida. Sure, it's not comfortable, but it's not this absolute lost person like you're going to find on the streets of Florida. So just take a moment to soak in these images of homelessness in California. We're now in Skid Row in Los Angeles. Kind of feel it out, understand what they're living like, because in a second I'm going to show you what homeless camps in Florida look like, and you can make your own determination on which homeless population is in the worst state. Notice how in California, homeless people are able to sleep on concrete floors adjacent to roads and businesses in case they need any services or in case they need to go buy something. They're not living in the woods. They're living right in front of businesses where they can obtain services. If they need to buy a water, if they need to use a bathroom, anything they need in California is readily available. Relative comforts for being homeless. You can see here these tents are set up on concrete. A lot of people in California also have a marriage mate or some type of relationship where they're homeless. In other words, they have some type of social life despite being homeless. You would imagine that living homeless on these sidewalks of Los Angeles, near businesses, near places of employment, and near, of course, services if they need them, is a lot more comfortable than being homeless in what we're about to see in Florida. This is what homeless camps in Florida look like. Not on concrete, not near businesses, not near stores. These people have to live hidden in the woods on the outskirts of cities. If they want to access water to bathe or to drink, they're going to be near a lake, which are usually infested with alligators. And it's not uncommon for homeless people in Florida to take a shower or a bath in a lake. That's why these homeless camps are all near lakes, because this is their only source of water, both for drinking and for bathing.
They'll kick me out of here, and I'll go 100 yards right down the road and set up another camp. What did you just solve?
Nothing.
Exactly. So that, and what makes Florida so bad is that it's a retirement state.
Really, someone? Nothing like needing a freaking sign in front of your house. You have an idea how much poverty there is out here? That there's just people selling like stuff on the side of the road everywhere, like fruits, flowers, old clothes, kids' toys. Like, that's just how much poverty there is in Lehigh, that people are selling stuff clandestinely to make a living. Like, that should just give you an indication. One after the other, people just selling. Look at all the litter too, bro. Single family homes, more single family homes. But they don't put in any infrastructure. There's no industry. There's nowhere you can go and get a job out here. Nothing. There was a murder investigation on this street. This is where a murder happened. This week here in Lehigh Acres. This is the site of a murder. Yet, despite this being a street where a murder was committed, if you look around, they're building new houses in all directions. You look around this community and all you see are new houses going in the last little bit. Quiet country, Lehigh Acres, going to crap with murders. And we're going to take a very short drive to the next recent crime scene here in Lehigh Acres. They would shut down this intersection to do donuts, and apparently an elderly couple tried to force their way through the intersection and they were shot at. Multiple arrests have come from that, and it has been a huge thing here in Lee County. But imagine that, shutting down an intersection to do donuts and do a street takeover, and if somebody tries to get in the way, just shoot at them. A dang lost cat, bro, on a dangerous intersection of Lehigh Acres, Florida. But I want to show you guys the worst thing about Lehigh Acres. Here's an entire shopping plaza that was built here in the eastern part of Lehigh Acres. And I think there's about maybe 10 different units. Only 2 of them are filled in. One of them, actually both of them, are for government. There's a health department, and then there's the Lee County elections. Which means that even if you build businesses out here, nobody invests in Lehigh Acres. You can see there's weeds growing through the parking lot. Not a single business has moved into this plaza, but this is where the hot dog guy got shot. So there's been 2 shootings here. This is Lehigh. I mean, this is crazy. No businesses, but 2 shootings. There's a guy that set up a hot dog truck, and somebody just drove by and shot at him randomly. The Florida Department of Health is here. Ironically, it smells like urine. This is what the back of the business looks like. And that is the situation currently in Florida. Yes, they're building new homes left and right. However, if you're not putting in businesses, if you're not putting in infrastructure, if you're not allowing people to have good schools, what type of community are you creating? Regardless of how much money or affluence they may have, their personal decisions to use substances, whatever lifestyles they're choosing to live, are leaving them in a place where material things exist, but deep inside there has to be something missing. But to people who have lost control of their lives, many times erupting in outbursts at complete strangers through road rage incidents at restaurants. So it means that now you, the normal person, are the target of somebody's anger for no explainable reason. This is what's happening in Naples, which goes to show that it takes more than just money to be happy in life. While some of us have to work endlessly to have a simple lifestyle, these people with money have all the time on their hands, and they use it for all the wrong reasons to their own detriment. Violence continues to plague Southwest Florida. An increase in crime and homelessness is taking place in the communities that I love of Naples and Fort Myers. And really, every day when I look at the news coming out of Naples and Fort Myers and other parts of Southwest Florida, crime is starting to creep in. And now the violence isn't exactly taking place in poor communities. It's taking place where you'd least expect it, among the wealthy and affluent. You would think to acquire wealth would require a lot of discipline and self-control, and that these would not be the environments where you would find this type of madness. Alright, if you live in Southwest Florida, Lee or Collier County, I would love to hear your opinions on how the increase in crime and lawlessness has affected your life living in Southwest Florida.